as you know, Jim Acosta of CNN, rattled off a number of statements that Trump made as recently as early this month, certainly last month, certainly in January, suggesting that we have this under control. And he did make those statements. He was following the medical advice he was getting. And the medical advice from experts has been all over the place on some of the most basic things about this virus. We've heard different things about whether or not it's more likely to be contracted because of inhaling it, touching the surface, than touching your face. I played you Dr. David Price of the Weill Cornell Medical Center, and he says, no way I'm going to get it as long as I wash my hands and do not touch my face. Never, never, never touch your face. Don't touch your face, wash your hands, don't touch your face. You won't contract the coronavirus, he says. Well, if that's true, then why are we having these social distancing? And we've heard inconsistent things about the masks, of which there is a shortage. Should everybody be wearing a mask? Well, only if you have contracted the virus or you have symptoms and you don't want to give them to somebody else. Well, then why are the medical personnel wearing masks? Well, it does do something. It does mitigate. So Dr. Fauci today said they may issue a guideline if the masks were available. We may consider suggesting that people wear them. Notice how qualified that is. We may if. This is what they've been saying. And I'm not mad at anybody. I'm saying, what do you expect Trump to do? Now, you're mad at Donald Trump for allegedly not following the advice of his advisors. And now you're mad at him for following the advice of his advisor. I mean, what do you want? John Hopkins study says that America was the best suited of any country in the world to deal with the coronavirus, to deal with a pandemic. And no, it's not true that Trump cut funding from the CDC. It is true he proposed cuts, but Congress said no, and the budget for the CDC was increased by $500 million. It's also true that on a number of occasions during the Obama administration, they proposed cuts in the CDC. Did anybody yell and scream and pound the table and talk about how they were leaving us vulnerable to a pandemic? Grow up. And yes, there was some office that was tasked with dealing with this, but the office was, the people involved in the office of personnel, they were reassigned. They went other places. It's not like people stopped paying attention to this. It's just incredibly unfair. And one of the reasons I believe that President Trump initially downplayed it is because he felt intuitively that the media for the last 3 years has been looking for something, anything, to browbeat him with to make sure he doesn't get reelected. And therefore, he felt that the media was making a bigger deal out of this than was really the case, not because of medical reasons, not because of real concern about the spread and the level of contagiousness of this, of contagion of this disease. No, it was because they wanted to find something to nail me with. That's why he gave that town hall in South Carolina, during that town hall in South Carolina, when he talked about this being their new hoax, meaning the people out to get me are now going to argue that I fumbled the response to the coronavirus and therefore Donald Trump is incompetent and therefore he ought not be reelected. That was his reaction. And why shouldn't he feel that way? I mean, my goodness, a quarter of the Democratic caucus, the House Democratic caucus, does not show up for his inauguration? What? Imagine if a quarter of the Republican caucus, House caucus, did not show up for Obama's inauguration because they didn't like the fact that Obama said he's going to pull the troops out of the Iraq War, and Obama called the Iraq War a dumb war, and he did. And Obama wanted to do Obamacare. Imagine if a quarter of Republicans said, "Wait, no, I have relatives who have fought and died in Iraq, and I'll be damned if I'm going to the inauguration of a president who referred to the Iraq War as a dumb war, given the blood and treasure we've sacrificed." That's not an incoherent kind of way of looking at it. Imagine if a quarter of the Republican House members decided not to go to Obama's inauguration. We would know their names. When they died, that'd be the first sentence of their obituary column. And then a dozen did not go to his first State of the Union speech. And there were, 67 co-signers who wanted a bill to invoke the 25th Amendment, arguing that the president was mentally unfit to hold the office, to exercise the duties and responsibilities of the office. Are you kidding me? And then for a while, Stormy Daniels and Michael Avenatti were going to bring him down. Maxine Waters says, Stormy going to bring him down. They're on first name basis now, Stormy and Maxine. Surprised it wasn't a reality TV show. And then, of course, we had the 2.5-year collusion investigation. That people like Jim Acosta at CNN and Rachel Maddow over at MSNBC were pounding the tables on, leading the attack. The day after the Mueller report came back and didn't find the collusion, the conspiracy, the obstruction, Rachel Maddow lost 500,000 viewers in one day. So this is what he's been dealing with. Inconsistent advice, changing facts, story is changing by the hour. Had China properly revealed this virus, according to a recent study, 95% of the cases and of the deaths could have been avoided. And yeah, the CDC screwed up on their test kit. And by the way, we've got an excerpt from a doctor who explains exactly why that happened. Why it is that the CDC was controlling the kits that were put out. And this is government. And yet the very same people yelling and screaming at President Trump for not doing a better job want government to completely take over our healthcare system. Are you serious? Are you serious? The people on CNN and MSNBC went absolutely bonkers when Mike Lindell at the White House yesterday invoked God. Here's a guy who's making masks to deal with the coronavirus pandemic, and they're mad at Mike Lindell because he dared to go to the White House and invoke God. How dare he?